this opportunity to be able to stand and come together and praise and worship your holy name. God, we pray today now, understanding that it's preaching time. God, and as I stand before these your people, God, I pray that you will decrease Greg and increase yourself in me. Hide me behind that old rugged cross, God, that the words that are spoken, God, are saturated with your Holy Ghost power. God, I pray for the hearts and the minds that they will be receptive of what it is that you have to say today. God, and I pray that you search my heart. Hallelujah. And if there's anything in my heart, God, that would hinder me from doing and being who you have called me to be, God, I pray now that you will forgive me of all of my sins, create in me a clean heart and renew within me a right spirit. Let the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable in thy sight. Oh Lord, you are my strength and my redeemer. And the people of God said, amen. Amen. If you will, turn your Bibles with me this morning to Mark, the Gospel of Mark, chapter 5. The Gospel of Mark, chapter 5. And while you're turning, I do give honor to God, who is our Creator, to Jesus Christ, our Redeemer, to the Holy Spirit, our Comforter. Pastor Harris, I thank you for stepping aside and allowing me to stand here this morning. I acknowledge my brothers and sisters of the pulpit, Minister Williams and Minister McNeil, Minister Wimes in his absence, Minister McCaskill in his absence, to the deacons' mothers, family and friends, everyone in their respective places, my wife Shannon, my children Deontay, Chris, and Jelani. I thank you all for being here. If you will, stand with me as we read the Word of God, Mark chapter 5. And we're going to start at verse 21, and we're going to skip and move around a little bit this morning. Mark chapter number 5, starting at verse 21. When you arrive, you will find these words, verse 21. And when Jesus was passed over again by ship unto the other side, much people gathered unto him, and he was nigh unto the sea. And behold, there cometh one of the rulers of the synagogue, Jairus by name. And when he saw him, he fell at his feet, and besought him greatly, saying, My little daughter lieth at the point of death. I pray thee, come and lay thy hands on her, that she may be healed, and she shall live. And Jesus went with him, and much people followed him and thronged him. If you will, drop down to verse 41. Verse 41, we're going to work through 21 all the way through 43, but drop down to 41 for the sake of time, and you will find these words. And he took the damsel by the hand and said unto her, Talitha cumi, which is being interpreted, Damsel, I say unto thee, arise. And straightway the damsel arose and walked, for she was of the age of 12 years old. And they were astonished with a great astonishment. As you go to your seat, can you tell your neighbor my subject this morning? Don't bury it yet. Don't bury it yet. God is getting ready to wake it up. Don't bury it yet. God is getting ready to wake it up. And if I could leave you with a subtopic, it would simply be keep on believing. In living life, experiencing life, and being exposed to the many options that are available to us, one of the things that I've learned is that in order to properly live in this land of the dying, being earth, trying to make it to the land of the living, being heaven, your faith It's not optional.
Right.
It's not optional. We can consider the different denominations, Free Will Baptist, the Primitive Baptist, the Missionary Baptist, Church of God in Christ, and whichever one you want to be a part of. But while they have different practices, the one thing remains true is that if you want to be effective, or as we talked about Wednesday, be a functional part of these organizations, you have to have and exercise faith. You can look through the scriptures, and what you will find is the evidence of this statement. Hebrews chapter 10:38 says, "The just shall live by faith." The writer of Hebrews goes on and he says in chapter 11, verse 6, "Without faith it is impossible to please God." Paul says in Romans 12:3 that God has given every person a measure of faith. Now, I understand, and I'm transparent enough, and I understand that even though faith is not negotiable, there are times in life that life, as Minister Williams would say, life happens. And it gets hard to believe anything other than what you see.
That's right.
The author Charles Swindle, he says that life is 10% of what happens to you and 90% of how you react to it. So my assignment here today is to spend some time dealing with that 90%. Regardless of what life brings your way, in order to receive what God has for you, in order to do what God has ordained you to do, in order to come out of the storm that you're in order to see what God has told you and shown you, you have to trust him and have faith in him. Right. Tell your neighbor, don't bury it yet.
Don't bury it yet.
This morning's message is a narrative message. And what I want to do is take us through Jairus' journey of faith. In this story, there are some things that I want us to look at, and I pray that it will encourage you to keep the faith. Jesus here, he has just sailed across the Sea of Galilee, coming from the land of Gadarenes. He had just finished his encounter with the demon-possessed man, and he finds himself in an encounter with Jairus. Jairus, he's the ruler of the synagogue. He was probably a part of the committee that ran the worship service and the administration part of the church. Back in this time, rulers of the synagogue, they were probably wealthy and influential men in the community and very well respected. But here in this particular time, Jairus, he finds himself dealing with a situation that his money, his social status, his church title couldn't resolve for him. This leads me to my first point that I found in the text, the request to Jesus. The request to Jesus. In verse 22, the text says that there were many people there, including Jairus. It says when Jairus saw Jesus, the first thing he did was he fell at his feet. Before he asked for anything, he was able to bow down and worship him for everything. Hebrews reminds us that he that comes to God must first believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. The first indicator that Jairus has faith can be found in the fact that Jairus leaves his problem at the house and he goes to the source that he believes can solve the problem. When you're dealing with life-altering situations and it seems as if time is against you, Jairus teaches us that it's going to be important that you learn to press past the obstacles and whatever serves as a hindrance, and number one, get into God's presence.
That's right.
Notice I didn't say get to a church service.
Get in his presence.
Now, I'm not knocking first through fourth Sundays, because scripture makes it clear that we shouldn't forsake the assembling of ourselves together, but we have to remember that we serve a God who's able to make house calls. So when you're dealing with hell on Tuesday, don't think that you serve a weekend warrior who can only answer prayers on Sunday. Tell somebody you need to get in his presence. Hallelujah.
Yes.
Let's talk about the story. Verse 23, Jairus gets Jesus' attention, and he explained that my 12-year-old daughter is home and near death. I can imagine Jairus talking with Jesus saying, hey, I heard that you were passing through, and I heard that you have power to do what no other power can do.
Yes, sir.
He says, all I'm asking you, Jesus, is that you come to the house and touch her. Because I believe that if you get there in time and touch her, everything will be all right. Interesting enough, when Jairus he makes his request to Jesus, we see the response by Jesus. Point 2, the response by Jesus. Verse 24 says, Jesus went with Jairus. Now, right about here, I'm sure that there's a sense of relief that comes over Jairus because he has left his daughter and went to Jesus to get help. He's made contact with the one that he believes can help, and now they are on their way to take the help to his daughter. I could imagine that as they're en route to the house, Jairus and Jesus are pushing their way back through this crowd, and Jairus is looking over his shoulder, making sure Jesus is right there behind him. But at one point, he looks and he noticed that Jesus has stopped and is now talking to somebody else. Wait a minute. Jairus says, I done fought through this crowd. I done fell out on this floor. You told me you were coming. I'm trying to get back to the house before it's too late, and you have the nerve to stop and talk to somebody else. I'm looking for a couple of mature and real people that's not ashamed to say that probably would have made me mad. In Jairus' journey of faith, this is where we see his faith gets challenged. Somebody say delay. You've prayed and you believe God has answered your prayer. You've prayed and the man or woman of God speaks a word and gives you confirmation of what God said he would do. And all of a sudden there's an unexpected detour in the road, and what you've been praying for is now being held up. This is a good place for me to encourage somebody. Just because you don't know what he's doing doesn't mean he's not doing anything. Just because you don't see him doesn't mean that he's not there. Just because you can't figure it out doesn't mean that he's not working it out. Wow. Here in the text, Jairus is looking for help on behalf of his daughter. He shows his faith by going to Jesus. Now, some would say that his faith is being challenged or tested, but I believe that it was also being strengthened. We're in verse 25, around 25. Jairus comes back to Jesus just in time to find him in a conversation with a woman who had been bleeding for 12 years. This woman here, she had given all that she had to these doctors, only to find out that the issue was still there. Then she heard about Jesus and she made up her mind to get into his presence, believing that if she could touch him, that everything, it would be all right. This was good for Jairus because just like the woman, she came pushing her way to get to Jesus, exercising her faith. She had been dealing with a sickness that no one else could deal with or could resolve. And based on Jesus' touch, she was healed. During the conversation that Jesus has with the woman, Jairus, he's lucky enough, he got a chance to hear Jesus tell the woman that your faith has made you whole. The point here is that when you're in a situation when you need a miracle, it's good when you're able to see a miracle. This is why we should rejoice when our brothers and sisters are blessed. Even when it seems as if your prayers have been held up. The old cliche that encourages us to be grateful when God blesses your neighbor, because that means he's in the neighborhood. If I was to call on some of my seasoned saints, they would probably say there is no secret to what my God can do. What he's done for others, he He'll do the same for you. I need you to encourage your neighbor and tell your neighbor, you're next.
You're next. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Jesus, he responds. And during Jairus' challenge with dealing with delay, point number 3, we see the reassurance of Jesus. Tell your neighbor, remember the source. Tell somebody else, remember the promise.
Remember the promise.
Years ago, Pastor, he wrote a song that says, he is a rewarder. He's a rewarder, stemming from Hebrews 11:6. It's important for us to remember scriptures and songs like this because on your journey, there may be times that you are praying or what you're praying for gets worse before it gets better. Right. But it's during these times that you have to remember the source of your faith. More importantly, you have to remember the promises that have been made. Jairus, he has gone and he's cried his eyes out because he wants his daughter to be healed. That's right. He's gone to the one that can answer prayers and calm his nerves. He's run into a delay because Jesus decided to start passing out healings. While Jairus was witnessing the miracle of the woman being healed, verse 35 says that the people from the house came to him with some bad news. They came to him and they told Jairus, your daughter is dead. They suggested that there is no need to mess with the master because she's dead. Listen, when you're praying and what you're praying about gets worse than what it is, the last thing you need is to be surrounded by people that don't believe, or the negative Nazis that only want to highlight the problem that you're dealing with. Verse 36 says, Jesus, he hears this report and immediately he goes to Jairus and says, don't be afraid, just believe. I know what they said, but I need you to keep on believing. I know what it looks like, but I need you to keep on believing. I know it's not going the way that you think it should go, but I need you to keep on believing. Hallelujah. The prophet Isaiah, he says it like this: the grass withers and the flower fades, but the word of our God stands forever. The encouragement is pretty simple here. If God said it, I believe it, and that settles it. Tell somebody, remember the promises. Remember the promises. Jesus. We've got the request and the response, the reassurance, but then what you notice in the text is you see the restrictions made by Jesus. Jesus and Jairus, they're back en route to Jairus' house. And all of these negative people that are standing out there, the folks that are trying to get selfies with Jesus, and they're standing by being nosy, he tells them to, you stay here. And he takes Peter, James, and John with him to the house. He gets rid of all of the spectators, you know, the ones that act like they care but are sticking around so they can find something to post on Facebook. He leaves them and they go to Jairus' house. When he gets to the house, there are people there that are screaming and crying. The Message Bible says that there are people who are coming and bringing casseroles. Now, we all know that this kind of activity is pretty closely related to getting ready for a funeral. Jesus does something here. He leaves the spectators behind. He goes to the house, and now there are people there that are crying because the girl is dead, and then there are people that are laughing at Jesus because he's trying to figure out why they are crying. What he does here, he sets an atmosphere for a miracle. Verse 40 says that he gets the funeral planners, the non-believers, the mockers, and the mourners, and he sends them outside. When you are trusting God for something, you have to make sure that you surround yourself with the kind of company that can believe it before they see it. So many of our dreams have been prematurely thrown away because people said that the dream was no good or couldn't be accomplished. Shawana, I ain't gonna call your name today. So many people have found themselves settling for mediocre jobs because people said you weren't good enough to be a CEO. But God wants you to remember, he wants me to remind you that you've made your request and he's a man of his word. But you might have to separate yourself from some people who are carnal-minded and are looking through their eyes instead of looking through their faith. I wonder if I got anybody that can act like Teddy Pendergrass and say, I think I better let him go. According to the text, God separates the believers from the doubters. As much as you love them, everybody won't be able to go where God is getting ready to take you. It doesn't matter what the reports reveal. It doesn't matter what the statistics show. If all you can do is point out the problems and reasons why something can't be done, you might find yourself outside of the miracle instead of being a part of the miracle. Point number 5. Jairus has gone and made his request. Jesus responds to Jairus. Along the way, he's dealing with delay, and Jesus has to give reassurance to Jairus. While they're on their way, it gets worse before it gets better. And based on conversations, Jesus has to restrict some people from Jairus. But point number 5, this is the reason, the one that we need to get excited about and shout about, is we see the resurrection by Jesus. You can make your request. You can separate and restrict people from those intimate areas of your life. But one of the most important parts of exercising faith is allowing Jesus access to that thing you cannot handle.
That's right. Give him access.
Verse 40. Jesus tells Jairus, take me to where your daughter is. My Lord. Today, many of us are dealing with situations and circumstances and hopes and dreams that we believe have died. We've accepted the naysayers' reports that things have died. Listen, your situation, it might not be a damsel. Your situation might be finances. Somebody might be dealing with a situation in a relationship or a career move. But your situation, it might be a dream. God says, take me to where your peace got disturbed. Take me to where you lost your hope. Take me to where your dreams and your future started to appear hopeless. Take me to where the doctor convinced you that there was nothing else that they could do. He says, remove the doubters and give me access. The scripture says he takes his 3 disciples into the room, probably because these disciples have witnessed him do some powerful things. The disciples, they knew what Jesus was able to do. Verse 41 says that he takes those with faith into the room and takes the little girl by the hand. Scripture declares that Jesus says, Talitha Kuma, which means, I say unto you, rise. All I'm trying to tell you today, my knowledge, is when you remove those non-factor, suggestion-giving, negative thinking people out of your situation and give God access that he's looking for, he can touch your situation and change it from being permanently dead to being temporarily sleeping. I get excited because of this change, because when something is sleeping, there's no need for us to worry about it because we understand sooner or later it's going to wake back up. How many of us know that we serve a God who's able to wake up what other people said was dead? You've got to remember that those things that are over your head are still under his feet. Just as he stood over the girl and gave her life. You have to remember that this is where he's standing today in our situation. What's over our head is still under his feet. He looked at a dead situation. Then he spoke to the dead situation. And the dead situation began to show evidence of life. I'm so glad that I serve a God who can speak to a dead situation and make it come back to life. He's able to speak to your financial situations and say, Talitha Kuma. He's able to speak to your dead relationships and say, Talitha Kuma. He's able to speak to your dead church membership and say, Talitha Kuma. To your dead community and say, Talitha Kuma. To the bad doctor report and say, Talitha Kuma. To the dead dreams and say, Talitha Kuma. To dead visions and say, Talitha Kuma. Dead employment, Talitha Kuma. Tell somebody, keep on believing. If you don't believe me, you can ask Lazarus. He'll tell you that one day I got sick and I died. Not 1 day dead, not 2 days dead, not 3 days dead, but 4 days dead. I look like death. Somebody said I smell like death. And according to your mind, you were convinced that it was too late. But Jesus said, take me to where you laid it. Take me to where you gave up. Take me to where you threw in the towel. What was once dead heard the voice of Jesus, and he got up and walked out of the grave. You got to remember that delay doesn't mean denial. You got to remember the promises. If I had to give you one more example, I can look back over 2,000 years when our human participation caused heavenly problems, and we found ourselves on the path of destruction. Jesus hung on an old rugged cross. They nailed him in his hands. They pierced him in his side. He hung and he bled and he died. But I'm so glad that the story doesn't end there. I'm so glad that there's more to the story, because early on the third day morning, Talitha Kuma, before the rooster crowed, Talitha Kuma, before the dew hit the ground, Talitha Kuma, before the grits began to boil, Talitha Kuma. He got up with all power in his hand. I gotta leave you now, but before I go, I need to remind you that life will happen, but keep on believing. The family is gonna get better. God will. He's gonna provide. Remember the promises. Remember, he's a healer. Keep on believing. Time is filled with swift transition. Not a word unmoved can stand. Build your hope on things eternal. To cause some changing hands. Be encouraged. No matter what's going on, he'll provide. He'll protect. He'll heal. He'll restore. He'll deliver it. You name it. God can do it. Tell your neighbor, I don't know what's going on in your life, but tell your neighbor, be not dismayed. Whatever besides you, God will. God will. God will. What he can't tell you. Is anybody happy about it? Is there anybody happy about it? Is there anybody happy about it? If you hold on, don't give up. Don't throw in the towel. Don't walk away. I know it gets hard. I know it gets heavy, but if you hold on, don't bury it yet. God's getting ready to wake it up. Don't give up yet. God's getting ready to wake it up. Talitha Puma, you're about to kill me. Talitha Puma, I'm just sleeping. God's getting ready to wake it up. Hallelujah. He's getting ready to wake it up. I know what it looks like. I know what it looks like. I know what it seems like. I know what they said about it. But God says that if you will move some things out of the way and give him access that he needs, that he can walk into that thing and he can stand over that thing and he can take that thing by the hand. And just because it looks dead, just because it smells dead, God is saying, I can wake it up. Be not dismayed. Whatever betides you, God's will. He's going to take care of you, my darling. He's going to take care of you, Shawana. He's going to take care of you. He's going to take care of you, mother. He's going to take care of you. He's going to take care of you. He's going to take care of you. Regardless of what the suggestions say, regardless of what the reports show, he's going to take care of you. Don't be dismayed. Don't give up. Don't walk away. Just understand that he's getting ready to wake some things up. Come on, somebody give God praise if you know God will take care of you. Somebody ought to go ahead and speak to your situations right now. Yeah, and to tell it to arise. Hallelujah. Oh, in the name of Jesus. Come on, somebody ought to speak to it. Take a moment and speak to your situation. Speak to that circumstance. They had counted it for dead, but you ought to go ahead and